Hello, this is Cousin Russ. I'm going to take a couple minutes and share with you how I am handling reference notes. That is a citation in the evidence explained format. And this has come from several weeks of work trying to understand how to craft an evidence explained citation. And I'm going to be using the template feature within Family Tree Maker because that's what I do. I want to use the template feature. It's there, so I want to use it. Okay, so let's get started. And this came out of a study group in the Dear Myrtle Google Plus community on chapters 1 and 2 of Evidence Explained. And what I did for me to understand how to do this crafting of a citation, I used a quick sheet, and the quick sheet that I used was Citing Ancestry.com databases and images evidence style by Elizabeth Schoen Mills, and it was published by Genealogical Publishing of Baltimore, Maryland. And there's a link to their website, genealogical.com, and the ISBN number for this laminated 4-page quick sheet. And I will put this information in the description of this video. So what I wanted to do was take those um, examples on a quick sheet and make them real for me. And most of my research is on ancestry.com. So I wanted to make sure my citations were there. So I created an Excel spreadsheet. And on the quick sheet, she said what it is that we're looking for, like a basic format database, and what type, created by Ancestry, for an example. So that's two things, and I put them in the spreadsheet as separate columns. They won't have any impact on the citation reference note, but they're important when trying to get there. The first item that she has in her examples is the author or creator. Now, for Ancestry.com, for the most part, there's no author or creator of the database, um, at least in the examples that she presented. Uh, so, but there's only a couple cases where that is used, but it is a column that I put in the spreadsheet, so I knew whether I had to look for it or not. The next thing is the item title. And I'll talk a little bit more about what item title means in a moment, but that's how it was designated, and that's how I put it in my spreadsheet. The next column was item type, like a database or an image. What is it? I have the title of it. Now, what is it that I'm looking at? Next item is the website title. Well, that's going to be ancestry.com for the most part, at least in this quick sheet and my experience, it'll be ancestry.com and the URL for Ancestry. And I'll give you details here in a minute. And then the date. Now, this is going to be an issue that we're going to have to deal with, which I will talk about, but you want to have the date as part of the citation. So I have a separate column in my spreadsheet for the date. The specific item of interest is the next column. And the final column is the credit line. That is, where did they get it from? And I'll explain this. It'll make sense in a minute. But you wanted to use the terms that are on that quick sheet so I could translate the quick sheet into the spreadsheet and then into my feeble mind. I picked up some formatting issues that have always been a concern for me. When do I use a period? When do you use a comma? When do I use a semicolon? So that was always an issue for me until I did the spreadsheet. So if it's a website where you're getting the information from, like Ancestry, Ancestry.com, the website name will be in italics, just like a book title would be in italics. If it was from FamilySearch.org, FamilySearch.org serves two purposes. One is the website, and one is the URL at the highest level. If it's a database on Ancestry is like a chapter in a book, so it would be in quotes. Here's where the fun begins for me is how do you end a field? Now that I have it in Excel, field makes sense for me. So each column is a field. What is the last character in that field? How do you distinguish that field from the next field when you're taking a spreadsheet and put it into a sentence? And as Elizabeth reminds us, we're to write in sentence format. I couldn't do that before. But anyhow, at the end of the field, if it's a database or a chapter, the data, as I mentioned above, is in quotes. If there's, and you, within the quotes, Elizabeth wants the comma. So if it's a database, you would put inside the quotations a comma. If the last character is a number like page number, you follow the page number. As in this example, 798, you end it with a semicolon. If the column or field ends in a closed parentheses, like a date range ending in 1867, after the closed bracket, closed parentheses, you end it with a semicolon. If the last character in the field is a letter like tree, you end it with a semicolon. So this becomes easy for me. If it's a database, it's in quotes. You put the comma inside the quotes. Anything else becomes a semicolon. I thought that was the hardest thing that I had to learn, but I didn't realize it until I put it in the spreadsheet and made the spreadsheet and made it into fields for me. What I always do is copy and paste the information from any database. I read the database, I understand or try to understand what the database that I'm looking at is all about, but I always copy and paste the information that Ancestry gives us because it will help me craft my citation. And you'll see that in a minute. Or actually, this is more in using the filling in fields in a template. Here's what it looks in Family Tree Maker. So there are the notes tab, and I just copy and paste from Ancestry and paste it right into the notes section. So I have it here. If I get another screen, I can move the screen so I can see this text because I'm going to need the information that's in my notes. So I'm going to create a template or use a template. Now, this video is not going to tell you which template to choose, which is a whole different topic altogether. But once we select the template, we need to fill out some fields, as my spreadsheet showed. The author or creator, the item title, the item type. Is it a image? Is it a database? And the website title, in this case, this series is going to be on Ancestry.com, and the URL for Ancestry.com. And I'm going to continue to talk about the date entry. It has to be manually inserted. It is not part of the template feature that we see. You have to manually add it, and I will show you how to do that in a minute. So here's the template that I created. That I selected for this specific database. There's the database title. You notice that I did not put any quotes. I don't have to put the quotes. Family Tree Maker will, because it is a database title, it will give me the quotes already. So all I need to do is type in the correct database title. I can leave the next item blank, but I need to put the website title, ancestry.com, and the URL, which is http://www.ancestry.com. I always put the year because year is in my notes. So that's when the database was created. That does not mean it didn't get added to later on. That's when it was created. That's in the source information that I copied and pasted. And I put some comments for myself in the comments field, so I know exactly where I got this from. It was on the first entry on the first side uh, of the QuickSheet, and it was basic format database created by Ancestry. Now that I've got the template selected, I now need to fill in the citation detail. Now, the citation detail is the next column that I filled out, and I'll show you that in a second. But that's what goes in the citation detail. I go down a little bit further on the screen, and there's the credit line. Those are the different columns that I have in my spreadsheet, but that is what the citation detail, what I put in the citation detail. I used to keep citation citation text for my own notes. If I want to craft a good citation, I need to use the citation text field. So I have moved some of the information that I have into the notes field that I showed you, the portion of that where I copied and pasted from Ancestry. So I put information uh, like a page number, or not a page number, a film number, a frame number, and I'll show you an example of that in a minute. But I don't need to have that in the citation text because I want to get to the reference note. So the reference note, and this took me a while to understand, the reference note that we see is a combination of the template fields, which I just showed you, the citation detail, and the citation text. And I'm going to come back again and say that I need to manually enter the date that it was accessed. And when I get done, here's what the citation reference note looks like. Now, I know that's probably, you can't read it, but I'll take care of that in a second. But that's what you end up with. On that screen is where you manually enter the date that it was accessed. And I've done a couple of videos on how to do that. And I realized looking at the screen that I did not put the word access before 22 January 2009. I thought I had corrected that before I made that screen capture, but I have to manually enter that information into the reference note field. Okay, so let's break this reference note down a little bit so you can see where stuff came from and where it ends up. There is the full reference note. Now I color coded it on the screen so that I could show you where stuff came from. The blue came from the template feature. That's where it came from and where it ends up in the reference note. The citation detail, who am I looking for, and some definition of who it is that I recorded from that uh, document, online resource, the image, in fact. And then there is the where they got the information on. So what this is saying is the information that ancestry.com gave me was citing a collection called Various County Death Registers Microfilm, Washington State Archives, Olympia. So I could, in fact, go back. If I were to go to Washington State, I could go back and find that record collection by looking for various. And by the way, I, in fact, did a search on various, the Washington Death Index did not show up when I did a Google search for it, but it did when I did a search for what Ancestry was citing. It found it right off the bat, so I was able to go back and find the original record. So this is important. The lesson for me was makes more importance to me to make sure I have a good reference note. But I did observe a couple of issues, and I'm just going to bring them up here because I think they're important. First is, for my information, I moved the stuff from citation text into the notes. For an example, that image that was on, I didn't show you the image for that record, but it was image 9 of 39. So there was 39 images that I was looking at, and the uh, person that I was looking for was on image 8. He was on a line number that was labeled on the left-hand side. Line number was 3318. And just for a note that I made for myself, is it was the third from the bottom. It didn't have a sequential line number like you might see in a census record, but the way it was labeled on the book that I was looking at, the line number was 3318. And to help me find it a little quicker, it was the third from the bottom. Those 3 lines of information are now in the notes section just below the source information that I put before. So I moved my notes from the citation text into the notes, probably where they belong. They do not belong in the citation, but I want to be able to find it again. So it's now in my notes. The next thing that was interesting is that the QuickSheet called for, uh, said Washington deaths with no comma. But what happened when I looked at it today, there was a comma between Washington and deaths. Now that has been very consistent from what I have been seeing, where when Ancestry puts out a collection, they separate the state from what kind of record it is. So that was very consistent. But uh, now, what did it look like when in 2009 when the QuickSheet was created? I have no clue. I just wanted to point out that uh, my citation will have the comma after Washington because that's how it was in the database title that Ancestry gave me. The other thing that happened here is the date range. The date range when the QuickSheet was established was 1890 to 1907. When I looked at it today, it was 1883 to 1960. What that tells me that in the past 6 years, they've expanded that collection a fair amount. I recorded what was there today. Now, if I went back from 5 years from now, they may have changed it again, but that's what it was when I pulled the data in. The other item is that the QuickSheet had a comma after the year, but within the quote, Family Tree Maker uh, template puts the comma outside the quote. Now, that is a this item that I cannot control. and I am not smart enough to say which is right or wrong, but I'm going to go with Elizabeth Shown Mills. But I will also note that I can't meet her standard in this case. I won't say it's close enough. It's as close as I can get it. The next item that I observed is that I had to manually add the access date within the parentheses that included the URL. I've said that a number of times, but something that I have to keep reminding myself, and I suggest that you do. Um, I know when Elizabeth Show Mills looked at that collection, it was 22 January 2009. Mine was 29 August 2015. And I've just shared with you the experience. But the fact is that I know when she looked at it, and I know when I looked at it, and I found the same record, same information that she did. The other thing is that in the citation detail, um, I had to add the semicolon. Remember the semicolon thing that I mentioned? I had to add it. Family Tree Maker added a period. I cannot control that. I had to add a period within the quote in the citation text field. Family Tree Maker put it after the quote. I cannot control that. So that's my observations on how to generate a reference note with Family Tree Maker 2014. And I believe that I'm as close to uh, an evidence explained reference note that I can get it. And I point out my observations. Um, I can't do anything about some of them, but it's important that you look at it in the detail. And now that I under have done this exercise by putting it in Excel and understanding some basic things, which I covered up front, this is crafting a reference note is going to be easier for me. Hope it helps. Thank you very much. Have a great day.